This week on Motor Week, Richard Hammond travels to Bordeaux for a drive of BMW's new 3 Series Coupe. Ginny Buckley takes a look at 3 hot hatches, including the Seat Coupra Sport. Also this week, the BMW 750. I go 00 to find out if or not it hits the mark. And Motor Week takes a look at petrol prices in the UK to find out just where all our money goes and just how much goes to the government.
There's no point in denying it. The coupe sector is the fashion end of the car industry. It's the shiny plastic handbag sector. It's the place where beauty is more than skin deep. It's an entire reason for being. And it's a place where we buy cars not for their performance or their ability, but for the way they look. It's a beauty parade. It's a complicated business if you've got around £20,000 to £25,000 burning a hole in the pocket of your jeans and you're looking for a car. If it's outright performance you want, then you're likely to be looking at something like Subaru's Impreza or the Mitsubishi Evo. If you want sports car thrills, then there are loads of little rear-wheel drive roadsters like the Mazda MX-5, or for a little more, Honda's new S2000. But no, you want a car that's a little more familiar, that echoes perhaps a more sensible choice but still stands out in the company car park. Though not too much, because it doesn't want to upset the bosses. In fact, what you want is a car that your fleet manager is going to let you have. Enter the BMW 3 Series Coupe. The 2 6-cylinder versions are first to be available, the 323 and the 328. The 318 with 4 cylinders is available in the autumn. The 323 confusingly has a 2.5 litre straight 6. The 328 has a 2.8 litre straight 6. Classic BMW engine, huge bucket loads of torque and a glorious straight 6 bellow to accompany it. The driving position is neutral, you feel very much in command with all the controls exactly where they should be. A couple of criticisms, both to do with the steering though. It's very precise and very direct and quite communicative as you'd expect from a BMW. But it could do, I think, with a quicker rack. You do have to put in an awful lot to get a response. And this wheel is enormous. It's like driving a tractor. It could do with something a little bit smaller just to make it feel like it's a little more eager to turn in. At the moment it just follows the corners rounds rather than turns into the bends with vigour. And then it has a whole barrage of technological wizardry to help you avoid throwing the thing at the scenery. There's ASC plus T, ABS, SSC, the list goes on and on. Basically we're talking traction control, and probably one of the most advanced traction control systems on the market today. Bearing in mind this is a rear-wheel drive car with quite a lot of power, you could get into a little bit of trouble. And to illustrate the point of just how effective that traction control system is, try turning it off and then being a little over-enthusiastic with the right boot, and you soon find things get a little bit naughty. There is a certain irony to this. The BMW 3 Series Coupe is, in its own right, a very good car, and it doesn't share a single body panel with its sister, the 3 Series Saloon version. And yet, despite the enormous expense and amount of engineering involved in achieving that, it's been designed to look, well, pretty much like the 3 Series Saloon, really. In fact, it's longer, lower and wider than the Saloon and than the previous Coupe, and it does have the same steeply raked front and rear windscreens that kind of define it as a coupe shape. But it is all very elegant and very understated. And the same can be said for the interior, where it's equally elegant and understated. And it's equally ironic that a car so often bought by the terminally brash should boast one of the most understated interiors on the market. Slide into the cockpit of any modern BMW, in fact, and you enter an environment designed to make you comfortable with maximum efficiency. Everything in the right place and everything built to last. Mind you, it's never going to win any prizes for being the most interesting place on earth to be. Standard equipment though is pretty good for the 3 Series Coupe. We've got electric seats on everything, air conditioning, safety has been given a high priority with 6 airbags in here, ABS and a sophisticated traction control system, and plenty of goodies in the cabin to play around with as well, including electric windows front and rear. And there's little touches like this that can make all the difference. The The 3 Series Coupe accounts for a quarter of all UK sales in its sector, and that's a level of success you can't argue with. BMW must be getting something right with this car, and apart from the build quality and image, that probably starts with the combination of rear-wheel drive and strong engines. The straight 6 units are a real peach, and the 328 is a very fast peach indeed, strong and tractable with plenty of power right through the rev range. It really is a joy to drive and feed the power through into those rear wheels. You would expect the 3 Series Coupe to be something of a special drive, and it doesn't disappoint.
What we found was that our customers actually ordered lots of options on Coupe, much more so than the saloon variant. And so what we thought we would do with this one is give them what they actually wanted in the first place, but actually in overall terms, when you take account of the additional specification, the car is actually better value than the old one. We came in '92 with the previous car, and it was the first proper coupe that we had built, and immediately the market expanded. And a lot of competitors have now followed us into that sector. So it's gone from around 16,000 units a year up to 35,000 units a year, and we have 25% of that market. So we've actually, as you rightly say, have a fair stronghold on that market. And the principal reason we believe for that is that this coupe, perhaps even more so than its predecessor, is a very, very good mixture of style, because style is important in coupes. It has to look good, but also it's practical. BMW's philosophy has never been to be wild with its cars. It's an evolutionary styling, just as the saloon is. And I think that's really because we've found a style which our customers like, a family style. And if we were to change that, actually we risk alienating a lot of our customers. The feedback we get from our customers is they like it. It's identifiable as a BMW. It's not an extreme car. You can park it and people are not sort of gawking at it all the time and perhaps making the occupants feel embarrassed. But it's a nice mixture between restrained style and, as I've said before, practicality.
The new 3 Series Coupe will sell, and probably in enormous numbers, but when you think about it, for all the wrong reasons, for its pretty face, for its BMW badge. But if it looked like an old allotment shed and was labelled a lumpy doodah coupe, it would still be worth a look. Its sheer ability would overcome such disadvantages. Sure, it might be in the fashion end of the motor industry, but to use a fashion statement, BMW would tell you that their design is a timeless classic, and you know, I don't think they'd be that far wrong.
In the words of that well-known song, girls just want to have fun. And what better way to bring a smile to a girl's face than a cold, crisp winter's day, a cluster of hot hatches and some fantastic roads. So what's in the pack? Well, no hot hatch test would be complete without the original.
In the late 70s, VW squeezed a tuned 1.6 engine with fuel injection into their sensible family favourite, the Golf.
It won the heart of everybody who drove it because it provided driving thrills without the financial spills. So is the Golf GTi still the hottest of the hatches? The first impressions are that the Golf has certainly grown up. It's traded in its trainers for a pair of hush puppies. The handling feels smooth and sophisticated, as does the ride. It really doesn't have that in-your-face feeling that it used to do back in the 70s. Over the years, the steering too has evolved. It really no longer feels as tight and responsive as it used to do.
Under the bonnet of this £18,000 GTi is a 1.8 turbo engine, producing 150 brake horsepower, a top speed of 135 miles per hour, and it'll get you from 0 to 60 in 8.5 seconds. It does need the turbo. The 125 brake horsepower GTi would struggle to pull the skin off a rice pudding.
So the Golf GTi has grown up and it's become a high-class car. But let's not forget that Volkswagen also owns Seat. And Seat make the car that is the undisputed king of the rallies. The car on which they've based this, the Cupra Sport. Very nice. And what about Peugeot, the company that gave us the 205 GTi, the only hot hatch to have had in the 80s? Well, they now give us the 306 Rally. It's lightweight, it's stripped out, it's just perfect for having fun in. The only problem with these two contenders is deciding which one to drive first.
Let's start with the Cupra Sport. This scorcher has a 2-litre 16-valve engine with very similar performance to the Golf. A top speed of 134 miles per hour, 150 bhp, 0 to 60 in 8.5 seconds. Its performance may be similar to the Golf, but the price tag is quite a bit lower, coming in at £15,500. This car is boy racing at its very best. You get a good hard ride, fast, accurate steering, superb handling, and just enough understeer to put a smile on your face. Now, the only thing that lets this bundle of fun down for me is the gear change. It's a little bit too long and lethargic for a car like this. And I'm going to have to be a total girl here, I'm afraid. The dashboard on the front, which is straight out of the Polo, is a bit too dark and dreary. It could be a little bit more stylish. And last, but definitely not least, the 306 Rally. Now, this little pocket rocket has absolutely blistering performance. 167 brake horsepower, a top speed of 137 miles per hour, 0 to 60 in 7.3 seconds. Yes, please.
Driving this car is an absolute blast. It really urges you to push it further and further, and yes, it puts a real smile on your face. This is the kind of car that makes you choose the longest route possible for your journey, just so you can spend the maximum amount of time in it. Unfortunately, it's also the kind of car that puts you in danger of losing your driving licence through speeding. What Peugeot have done to make something this much fun is taken the 306 GTi 6 and stripped it right down. There's no electrics package, no air conditioning, no fancy door trims. What it all does is save an awful lot of weight. You get no frills, but you get plenty of thrills.
The engine feels amazing. It pulls well up to 4,500 revs, but then it explodes up to 7,000 in a frantic scramble for the horizon. This is a car with no toys, but you don't need them, because this car is the toy.
So is the Golf still the leader of the pack? Well, it's still in very good shape, although it's gone a little bit flabby around the middle. It's still an excellent car, but it's not quite as rock and roll as the other two. Having said that, though, I've got to point out that it's by far the most reliable and the best quality vehicle here. So what of the Cupra Sport? Well, girls do just want to have fun, and what better than this neat little package to have fun in? The only thing that lets the Cupra down is the gear change. So, the king is dead. Long live the king. I hereby crown the 306 as the car most likely to satisfy a girl's needs. With a car like this in your life, who needs a man?
Coming up after the break, the 750. I'll be looking at one of the most luxurious models from BMW. Also, petrol prices. How much of our hard-earned cash goes to the government when filling our tank? And a special report featuring a Viper like you've never seen it before.
The stark truth is that for every £10 paid at the pumps, £8.50 goes straight to the government in tax. Just 1.5 of our precious pounds is all that's left to pay for that amber nectar. Why? Why is it that every winter we, quite rightly, put pressure on the government to subsidise heating fuel for old people, and yet we let them take us for 85% tax on fuel for our mobility? There are 12 million people in this country living just above the poverty line whose ability to work, socialise and improve their lot would be hugely improved with a car. For them, just chucking away 17 quid on fresh air every time you fill the tank could well be the factor that makes car ownership an impossible dream and leaves them reliant upon an outdated, unreliable and often filthy and dangerous public transport network. Why? Where does our money go? Well, of course, the money goes to the government to cover the huge costs of building and maintaining our complex road infrastructure. Well, you'd think so. In fact, of the staggering £35 billion a year that the Treasury receives in vehicle duty, £23 billion comes directly as a result of tax on fuel. That must pay to look after a lot of roads. It would, if that's where it went. In fact, only £6 billion of that money is put back into our roads, which explains a lot. The AA has launched an aptly named Fair Deal for Motorists campaign. Denise Raven is their representative.
What we're really trying to do initially is create awareness. A lot of people believed that the amount of tax that the government would probably take was perhaps maybe around 40 or 50%. Most of them are outraged when they hear that it's more than 80% because they, like us, don't feel they're getting a fair deal back from the government. I hope that a lot of motorists and other drivers are on our side, and I think that, you know, even people without a car are suffering because of this. The fact that transport costs, fuel costs are going up means that no matter how you get to your local supermarket, whether you go on the bus or in a car, the transport costs of those goods have gone up, so you're likely to pay more for your pint of milk like everybody else. So I think just about everybody's behind us, and again, people who do use the bus and the train, they want more money invested in their transport system, and this isn't what's happening either.
For the future, well, it ain't getting any better. The question is, how will the motorists fight back when taxation crosses the threshold to become the window tax of the 21st century?
The name's Royle, Ian Royle, secret agent 003½, licensed to be thrilled. My mission today is to drive this BMW 750iL and work out why the real James Bond chose a German car over a more traditional marque, perhaps like an Aston Martin. This is a car packed full of gimmicks and gadgetry with more than enough computer power to send a rocket into space. The BMW 750iL is a car with a whopping engine, 5.4 litres and a V12 that purrs around town, but when you unleash it on the open road, it growls with pleasure at its unleashing. It has 326 brake horsepower, more than enough to take the car to 60 miles per hour in 6 seconds, and a limited top speed of 155 miles per hour. Even the steering wheel is a minefield of technology. You get controls for the radio, the telephone, the cruise control. There's a button to recirculate the air should it become stuffy here in the cabin, heavens forbid. And you can even have a heated steering wheel. A touch of the button will warm it for you on a cold winter morning. All around the car are these sensors which work the park distance control. Now they send a signal back inside the car to the dashboard which beeps at you as you get close to an obstruction, say a villain in a multi-storey car park. On your way to the casino for a game of Baccarat with Blofeld, then what better than in the back of the 750iL? You get an extra 5 inches of legroom back here, as well as electric seats, heated seats, double glazed windows, and these security blinds. What better way than to while away a few minutes and enjoy a vodka martini, shaken but not stirred. Now, you may think you can't have much fun in a car as big as this, but believe me, you can. The long wheelbase 7 Series is nearly 18 feet long and over 6 feet wide. They don't come much bigger, believe me. But drive it hard, push it fast into a corner, and it responds perfectly. Your rear passengers may feel a little shaken or stirred, but you'll have the smile of someone who's just been to bed with pussy galore. One of the reasons the car is so sure-footed on the road is that it's fitted with 2 traction control systems. Yes, 2. You get automatic stability control and traction and dynamic stability control, and they equal a great handling car. The moment the computers in the car think you're about to lose control, get into trouble, they cut in and help you out. You'd have to do something very stupid to lose control of this car. So, what sort of secret agent salary would you need to buy this car? Well, a whopping one, that's for sure. You'll need deep pockets to be able to afford the £75,000 price tag, and there's very little in the way of extras. And the mind boggles at the amount of computers in the car, enough to send perhaps Moonraker into space. It's not a car for your friendly mechanic from the local garage to be messing about with. So, did 007 James Bond make the right choice in choosing a 750 BMW? Well, perhaps after so many narrow escapes, he thought it was the time to have something a little more comfortable than his trusty Aston Martin, and this car fits the bill perfectly. BMW certainly pulled a masterstroke in getting their cars into the Bond films, but you can't help feeling that perhaps he'd be more suited to driving a Bentley Continental Coupe, for instance, but even that's not British anymore. For me, 003½, this car fits the bill perfectly. Miss Moneygrabber, book me a flight to Munich, will you?
Caravans, curse of the holiday motorist, chugging down the motorway, usually two abreast, holding up a trail of motorists and lorry drivers alike. Well, maybe not in this case. Motoring journalist Mark Walton has teamed up with Chrysler Jeep to take on the speed record for towing a caravan. But how did this amazing record attempt come about? Brian Rees of Chrysler.
This crazy man called Mark Walton phoned us up and said, would we try and break the land speed record for towing a caravan? So we're going to have a damn good go at it. Got lovely weather for it today. And 126 miles an hour is the target. Doesn't sound that much, but it's got to be a normal caravan. Can't be any aerodynamic changes, and we can't take everything out. The caravan's got the cooker and the fridge in there still. 126 the target. We reckon we might get about 130 today with the Vicron, because it's one hell of a powerful car, and we've got good weather for it. So that's the plan.
And what sort of speed do you think you'll achieve?
Viper would normally do the best part of 180 miles an hour, but we put the caravan on the back, and it's like a big parachute and air brake on the back almost. And we'll probably get stuck at about 130 today, I should think.
So let's meet our intrepid pilot. Mark, what are the major things you'll need to keep an eye on during the run?
The main thing is just basically no really strong crosswinds, because obviously we don't want the caravan sliding around. And not having any rain is another advantage, obviously. And there's actually a balloon floating around over there, which is giving us a lot of confidence as well, because balloons don't usually go up in windy weather either, so it's looking good.
The team sets out for one last run. If they don't succeed this time, they'll call the whole attempt off.
That actually felt like the best run. But at the end, I just glanced down at the rev counter, and normally it's just about 5,100 RPM. And that time I just glanced down and I thought, blimey, that's about 5,200, 5,300, and it's just a tiny, tiny fraction. And the engine note was just ever so slightly higher. And I thought, well, if that's not it, then that's it, we go. There we go. 1 mile an hour over.
So congratulations to the team. They've just proven how fast a caravan could go.
Next week on the programme, a new face on Motor Week. Phil Sayer joins us to take a look at the new Alfa 145. And Richard Hammond drives the Noble M10. That's next week on Motor Week.